exactly what does somatic processing mean? What is it? And the reality of that now, in the last 25 years, there are now so many different modalities of ways that we work with the way that the body is holding the story. We have been in the mindset age for a really, really long time, where the commonality of mental emotional health has to do with cognitive behavioral therapy, about top-down processing. Thought creates the neurological activity that then broadcasts somewhere in the body. And that would be the understanding that I would have people really truly grasp is, you have a thought, it's a neurotransmitter, goes to the hypothalamus where it creates a neuropeptide, releases through the pituitary gland, travels through the autonomic nervous system to a plexus of nerves somewhere, normally a hormonal center of some sort, where it broadcasts a signal that we know as an emotion. So the thought creates a cascade of neurological activity, and the body radiates a particular signal that we interpret as an emotion. With an abstract mind, a human advanced abstract prefrontal cortex, we totally have the ability, unlike, say, my dog, who has a memory of 18 to 20 seconds, right? We have the ability to be in an abstract version of the future, an abstract version of the past, and even an abstract version of now, where we're imagining what everybody is thinking and doing and saying, and none of it has to be true. But whatever that thought is that we have, whether it's true or not, is still being reflected in the uncomfortableness or the density or the felt sense of the body. And so this is where we're moving into, like mental emotional health. Like, we have the psychological technology to basically completely eradicate what we are calling mental emotional disease, except in the case of organic deficiency like brain damage. And even then, we have a lot of methods that we can condition the brain to experience reality in completely different ways than the suffering that seems to be the norm in society today. So what does it mean by, the body keeps score? What does it mean by, the stories in the body, right? There's patterns, and here's some of the really, really common patterns that I've noticed in my career working with people in somatic processing. We're all very, very subjective. We're very special. We all have our unique, human lives. But there does seem to be objective common patterns of how things get reflected in the body based off of the way the story is working, So part of this is that we're learning how to come out of the story. That's what mindfulness is. We're paying attention in the now to what's here now also. Normally though, if you're struggling, if you're suffering, if you're not disconnected and disassociated, which I have seen some of the most brilliant people in the world be completely disconnected from what they feel in their bodies because their brain has the ability to do that, to disconnect. And they think their way through everything. And, typically this is going to come with, that I need to be right disease, as opposed to how do I stay connected, which is kind of the offset of that. So when we look at what we feel, if we can feel, and there are ways to do, kind of an assessment to figure out whether or not somebody feels something or not. Like, one of the questions I would ask would be, if they say, well, I have anxiety, my first question would be, where in your body do you feel that anxiety? And if they go, well, it's in my head. Well, then my next question is, well, are you talking about a felt sense in the actual head? Or are you just talking about the abstract concept of the mind? And if they've been thinking their way through and it's the abstract concept of the mind, then you'll see them literally kind of, their eyes are almost crossed because they're rewiring their neural experience of reality to, oh wow, in the head. That's a physical, that's a bottom up type of processing, right? So if there are physical sensations that someone is able to get in touch with in the head, frequently this has to do with categories of control, confusion. Like, I have no control, hence I'm confused, things like that. If it's here in the neck, this type of area down the esophageal, like, this is frequently, I can't express what it is that I truly want to say in this scenario, this situation, right? If it's in the chest right here, all like A lot of things going on in here. One, anger can be experienced as kind of tight bands across the chest, and you can see how that could pair with control pretty quickly. So we can feel different things in different parts of the body. And then anger is always masking what? Underneath? Pain, heartache, heartbreak. We now know 2 different studies I'm aware of where we know that heartache or heartbreak is a signal from the brain down into the vagal nerve, polyvagal theory, in the vagus nerve, that basically can feel like a giant hole in our chest, or like an elephant sitting on our chest, just some feeling in here of compression or tightness or density or emptiness or something along those lines. And then way down here in our solar plexus, I did 2 years of trauma work in a Texas County jail. Every single first session that I had with every male in there, at least, and some of the females, they'd be going like this, crossing their arms in front of their solar plexus, which basically is about power. Don't take my power. I don't know who you are. I don't want you taking my power. A defensiveness, a protectiveness, right? So when I ask somebody, where do they experience an anxiety, and they tell me, nobody really has to even know the story, because the felt sense of what they're feeling where and to what degree will tell you what the story is. And it's not really about the story. We actually want to come out of the story as fast as we can and be able to process what's going on in the body. So, just to throw out a couple of names that you can research out there very quickly. EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. When we're talking about processing, we're talking about layers. And in my experience, these layers can be anywhere from 3, but normally in the adult, 20, 45, different layers, where we have at some point in our lives at different brain activities, like for example, in childhood, we have, a delta, theta, before we move up into alpha, beta, where we have different ways of processing. Some of those may even be pre-language, pre-hippocampal volume as well, more of an autonomic nervous system reaction to our environment, not a philosophical visual memory. We just feel a certain way, but we don't have a memory of why. That can be possible. Then we can also have memories of actually why. We can actually have visual memories of touchstone moments that have created a dysregulation in the autonomic nervous system, where a part of us is now trying to protect us because of something that was either modeled to us or that we actually went through. And now that part of us, even though we've maybe even bulldozed over it and said, no, I'm okay now, has still not processed. So trauma basically is normally pointing to a distress that hasn't received resolution. A distress without resolution. If there's no resolution, then a part of us is still defending, protecting us against it, even if all these other parts of us are bulldozing over that and going, no, you're okay. Saying we're okay and actually processing the felt sense in the body of being okay are kind of 2 completely different things. So that's our goal in somatic, is how do you do mindful inquiry? How do you talk to the body? And talking to the body is not always done with words. How do you talk to the body in order to get flow? Flow means in and out. So that means a lot of different things. There's different ways to communicate with the body. Breath, absolutely one of the biggest, most incredible ways to communicate with the body. And we'll go over that separately in our talk on SRI and breath work and things along those lines. But touch. To be touched is absolutely a communication. I spent 10 years working as a licensed massage therapist, actually as a advanced certified neuromuscular massage therapist. And I can tell you that a certain part of touch is, a manipulation of tissue. We're engaging in the belly of a muscle and we're elongating tissue as one example. But another part of it is just by bringing my hand to someone else, I'm enhancing their consciousness and bringing their consciousness to that area, which gives them information. Information and energy are the same thing. So we're getting information. That's communication, right? Another one is movement. You see this in yoga where people can have really, truly cathartic expressions. And a simple example would say, let's say we're struggling from heartache and we go into, kind of a triangle. I don't know if you can see that on this particular screen, where people can have a cathartic release because we're moving, we're stretching something that has been holding a density in a very specific way. And if we get that movement, then it can change. In the same way that we know exercise can improve our mental stasis as well. All of this is working with the triad of change, which I want you to watch the video specifically on the triad of change. Focus, language, structure. That if we're stuck in one and we bring movement to the other two, we will get movement in that one as well. So movement absolutely can give us, language and information. And then so breath, movement, touch, sound. Sound is, and in conjunction with breath and some of these other ones, can be such a powerful communication of flow. What does flow mean? It means in and out. What does that mean when we're trying to understand ourselves? It means listening and expressing. And so if we've got something that's expressed, if we have a part of us that has been crying for attention to have resolution, and we've buried that under 40 layers of whatever, for us to actually be with that in such a way for it to feel understood, for it to reintegrate into the whole, this is what somatic processing is all about, is how do we work with the body to shift the way the subconscious layers have been holding how we protect ourselves within our reality. And the truth is that we often have two or a multitude of parts of us that are trying to protect us, but in completely different ways, and they're at odds with each other. And we've got to figure out a way to make friends and negotiate that and integrate them together. So somatic means soma. Soma means of the body. So we're talking about, instead of top down, thinking our way through mindset, getting into the body, being present with the body and listening, because just sending breath into the body in a certain way can literally, physically, metaphorically give you a sonogram of the autonomic nervous system that shows you how you're holding, whether or not you're in flow or whether you're in some form of density dysregulation. It's a huge piece of information for us to learn. So, somatic processing. If you haven't experienced it, EMDR, that's one way to work with very specific layers where we put something up on a train track, we give it energy for it to move through experiencing something in a new way. EFT, emotional freedom technique, where we're using acupressure to basically send a piezoelectric signal into where the thought is creating that cascade of neurological activity. We're sending acupressure, we're sending a piezoelectric signal to interrupt that process, to create room for there to be a downregulation from that dysregulation back into flow. Somatic experiencing, look that up, SE. TRE, where we're setting up the body to allow it to shake or tremor in a very specific way, because the body's actually designed to do that. Like all the way back from, being a really, really loose, sea creature in evolution, we're supposed to have a fluidity and a movement of energy through our spine. We're looking for a somatic spinal wave in a very specific fashion in order for us to be free and not be tense and holding something that's trying to, at its root, protect us. That's how everything at its root begins, something that is originally designed to protect us in some way. But, we're either shutting everything down to protect us, or we're opening and absorbing, which means we're either growing or we're dying. And so this makes it very important for us to identify these aspects where we've got so much protection that we're not growing. We're cut off from the expansion of power in our life, and therefore, metaphorically or spiritually, our soul expansion are at odds with those mind protections that we've created that the body is reflecting. Focusing is another method of getting in touch with the felt sense. Felt sense is a very important term for us to look at. There are also breathworks is something that's kind of sweeping, where we're working primarily with the breath, but we're, a facilitator basically enhances and normalizes the experience for somebody to express something with these different languages by maybe even, mirroring it and going 10% more to make it okay, to create a container of safety. And that's another whole aspect we need to talk about, containers of safety. Somatic processing, if you haven't done it, look it up, get interested in it. If you truly want to be free from suffering, it's time, and it doesn't take 15 years for somebody to heal. It takes 15 minutes if it's set up and done the right way. All my love. See you in the next video, guys.